right, Erin, you're live.
Good morning, Title I coordinators. I'm sorry we're a couple minutes late here. I had all of us sitting in another meeting wondering where you all were. So happy to be with you. Thanks for joining us. I know you're all busy wrapping up before winter break. My name is Erin Suddeth, and I'm the branch manager for the Title I Part A Support and Improvement branch. And I have a colleague with me today who I'll let introduce himself.
I'm David Malonte, one of the assistant directors in the Division of School and Program Improvement.
I will share my screen and we will get going. As always, you can submit any questions or comments either in the chat, or if you want to use the raise hand feature and then unmute yourself, or you can send an email to me, excuse me, at erin.suddeth@education.ky.gov. And as always, this webinar will be recorded and posted on the Title I Documents and Resources webpage. Just a recap from our November webinar, we discussed revised allocations, some details about consolidated monitoring, as well as an announcement about the 2022 National ESEA Conference. So our agenda for today, as always, we've got some updates and reminders. We're going to talk a little bit about preventing improper use of taxpayer funds, information on the release of 2020 census data, as well as the revised Title I handbook that you all received earlier this week. So more updates and reminders. Revised allocations, we talked about this last time. They are not released yet, but we want everybody to be on the lookout for those. And remember, until your application, your consolidated application receives initial approval in GMAP, the revised allocation will not upload for you until you get that initial approval from all of the programs. Another reminder about the Comprehensive District and School Improvement Plans, Phase 3. These diagnostics and plans are due in the Cognia Comprehensive Improvement Platform by January 1. Information about the Comprehensive Improvement Planning timeline and resources is available on our Comprehensive Improvement Planning for Schools and Districts webpage. So the items that you have coming up due, we have Professional Development Plan, should be one for schools and one for the district. The Comprehensive School Improvement Plan, the CSIP, and the Comprehensive District Improvement Plan, the CDIP. The Executive Summary for schools in the district, as well as the Superintendent Gap Assurance. So make sure that you get those in by the deadline. All right, preventing improper use of taxpayer funds. Section 9203 of the Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA, states that the Secretary of Education must require each recipient of a grant or subgrant to display publicly the Office of Inspector General hotline contact information. And this is a requirement for all ESSA programs, not just Title I. So I have a screenshot of the poster here. You can access this poster through this link. It's also on our Title I Documents and Resources webpage. So what you'll want to do is make sure that you print this off and post it publicly in the district office and any schools that are receiving federal funds, any federal funds under ESSA, not just Title I. Okay, upcoming release of 2020 census data. Be on the lookout for those tentative census poverty data and tentative hold harmless rates. They have not been released yet. The U.S. Department of Education uses the 2020 census data to calculate school year 2022-23 allocations under Title I Part A of the Elementary and Secondary Act of 1965 as amended, and that's ESEA. KDE issues this data to districts for planning purposes for the 2022-23 school year. And please note that any numbers provided, again, are tentative and they are subject to change. Data can be used to calculate an estimate of your 2022-23 Title I Part A allocation. And when we release this, it'll come to you in the Commissioner's Monday message, as well as a direct email to the coordinators, but it has not been released as of yet. So when you do get that information, you'll need to review it. The census data estimates, excuse me, are based on a statistical model that incorporates information from the following sources. We've got Census Bureau's American Community Survey, administrative records taken from federal income tax returns, records from Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, the most recent decennial census data, updates to population estimates, data on supplemental income recipients, and economic data from the Bureau of Economic Analysis. So these numbers don't reflect anything that is reported by KDE to US Ed or any data that you can pull from Infinite Campus, such as average daily attendance. That's sometimes a confusing thing for people when they see those tentative numbers. The list of local education agencies used for the census estimates will be based on the school year 2020-21 school district boundary survey conducted by the Census Bureau with the help of the district mapping coordinator in our state. And the LEAs on this list include only regular LEAs that have geographic boundaries. And these boundary surveys are conducted across the state just to verify the number of students, remove any districts that may have closed or maybe were combined with another district. Our population and poverty estimates. What you'll see when you get this information is a table, and we're going to have kind of an example in a few slides. So the table provides the estimated number of related children ages 5 through 17 in families of poverty, as well as the estimated total ages of the 5 to 17 population, and the estimated total resident population for each LEA. The census poverty data do not include the other children counted in the formula, such as foster children, children in facilities for neglected children. And the census data, when you receive it at this point, is not complete, and that's why we refer to this as tentative numbers. Like I said, neglected, delinquent, and foster care, those counts are not complete at this time. They're typically complete around early June. Okay, the hold harmless, you'll hear that term thrown around a lot. Hold harmless refers to the rock bottom dollar amount a district may receive in any fiscal year. This number is variable. It's based on last year's allocation. So your hold harmless percentage will be 95% if your census poverty percentage is 30% or greater. It will be 90% if your census poverty percentage is between 15% and 30%, and it will be 85% if the census poverty percentage is below 15%. And all of this information is also included in our new coordinator webinar that's available on our Title I Documents and Resources webpage. So this is just kind of a recreation to give you an idea of how the chart will be laid out when you receive it. You'll have a list of all of the LEAs on the left, the tentative school year 2022-23 formula children, the tentative 5 to 17 population, and the tentative poverty percentage. And then it will, based on these numbers, it will calculate your tentative hold harmless percentage. But again, remember, it could change. Poverty percentages are reported to 2 decimal places and will not be rounded to the nearest whole number in the determination of the hold harmless percentages. So just like prior years, the Census Bureau will provide a challenge period for local school districts to review the poverty and population data for certain non-statistical errors. So these errors could fall into 2 categories. It could be processing input data or running the estimation models or programs, or in preparing or processing information to define geographic boundaries, for example, school district boundaries. So when this information is released, we encourage you to read through the document very carefully. Generally, the Census Bureau does not make changes to the numbers except in the case of data error. So these 2 errors that I shared just a moment ago. It's always a good idea to compare the new numbers to last year's release of data just to see what the differences are and if you noticed any major changes. The due date for that challenge period has not been released yet. However, it will be listed in the notification that goes out. We'll also provide reminders in future newsletters and webinars, make sure that everyone is aware of that information. Based on the 2 factors outlined on the previous slide, the LEA may contact the Small Area Income and Poverty Estimates branch at the Census Bureau for further information on how to challenge these data. KDE cannot revise your census estimates. Only the U.S. Census Bureau can do so. So if you review that and you think that there is an error, you're going to want to contact them, not us. Like I said, the due date hasn't been released yet. Last year it was March 8th, so I would probably plan on sometime a similar time frame. All right, moving on to the Title I Part A handbook. So as you saw in your email earlier this week, the revised Title I Part A handbook is available on our Title I Part A webpage. And I just want to again thank everybody for all of your patience as those revisions were reviewed and approved. What you'll find when you look through the revised handbook is the updates align with guidance and information that we've been providing in newsletters, webinars, etc. for several months now. So I'm going to quickly go over to the handbook, and I'm just going to touch on some of the big changes and try not to make everybody too dizzy scrolling through. So on the Title I Part A program requirements, we're going to see a couple new pieces of information. So in this allocation section, we've got some expanded information on the 125% rule. We also added a note about teacher certification requirements. Here it is here, number 9. Some additional information on carryover funds, number 13. And as well as a new section on program monitoring, because that is an important part of the Title I Part A program. Let's see, school-wide program evaluation. You'll see some updates there. We removed the section on annually evaluating the school-wide plan, and we replaced that with information on regularly evaluating the school-wide plan. And we also removed references to school-wide plan. The school-wide plan, those of you who've been around for a while may remember that the school-wide plan used to be a separate document. However, it's been replaced by your CSIP. All of that same information was in both documents, and we don't need to make you do more than you need to. There was also in the appendix, there was a rubric to assess your school-wide program, and that's been removed since it all is part of your CSIP now. Okay, our next change, staff working in a school-wide program. We have certification requirements for teachers and paraeducators working in school-wide programs, as well as some information about non-instructional duties being performed by any Title I paid staff. So these requirements, this applies to any paraprofessional in a school-wide program, any teacher in a school-wide program, not just those being paid with Title I funds. The non-instructional duties is what applies to the people who are being paid, whether fully or partially, with Title I funds. Okay, in our parent and family engagement section, a number of things have been slightly reworded, not a lot of major changes there. Sorry if I'm making you dizzy a little bit. Okay, the next big change is reserving funds for the administration of equitable services. Here it is here on page 34 and 35. This is a new section. Remember, we talked about this in our May webinar. We've also had it in some newsletters, just talking about the need to reserve some of the private school funds for the administration of services, depending on how the person overseeing those services is paid. The next section that has had quite a bit of work is our foster care section. So the foster care use section used to be pretty short. As you can see, we've added some definitions, we've added roles and responsibilities of the foster care point of contact. Of course, information about the transportation agreement, some useful links, things like that. Education of homeless children and youth. We updated the dates for the new McKinney-Vento grant cycle, of course, because they just started a new cycle. And we expanded the information on the grant process just a little bit to kind of better explain how that works. Another thing we did for the homeless section was in this district requirements section. Now, you're not going to see a lot of content changes here, but we did kind of change the layout. I think it's easier to read this way because we've broken it into sections. So it's all district requirements, but you have your set-aside funds, your homeless liaison, your dispute resolution, records, transportation. It makes it a little bit easier. If you know exactly what you're looking for, you can go right to that section. Okay, our next change is going to be our information about our English learner parent notification. Most of this information was in the last one. What we did add was the information about the templates that are available on KDE's English Learner and Immigrant Resources webpage, and I shared information about that in our July webinar. Okay, the section that probably had the most change is going to be the time and effort section. Now, this information was discussed in the June webinar, but again, this section did have a lot of changes, so be sure to go in and review this section closely. So looking at some of the changes we made, let's see, information about having written policies and procedures for time and effort, flexibility in time and effort reporting. And we really expanded this section comparing personnel working with one cost objective to personnel working with more than one cost objective. So your people who are paid maybe partially from general funds and partially from Title I. We also revised the personnel activity report, or PAR. So this would be for districts working with more than, or being paid by more than one program. So we kind of simplified the way that this looks. And there's a blank version of this report in our Title I sample documents folder, and that one has been updated as well to match this new template. You're not required to use this exact layout. It's just an option that we made available for you. Then our appendix, we've got a new layout for our year at a glance, and this information you also have been seeing each month in our newsletters. Okay, we've got our parent and family engagement checklist. We've got those 3 checklists, and Erica shared information about that in the August webinar. So those have already been shared with you, but they are in the handbook now. Let's see. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, we removed that rubric to assess the quality of the school-wide program and accountability results for continuous improvement, because all of that is in your CSIP. So we don't need to make you do it in 2 places. Just want to remind everybody about the National ESEA Conference. It is February 16th through the 19th, 2022, and it's hosted by the National Association of ESEA State Program Administrators. This year's conference is going to be a hybrid event. You may join virtually or in person in New Orleans. They've got over 130 sessions, 5 keynote speakers covering many of the challenges that are faced in education, and registration is now open on the NASPA conference webpage. Early registration does go through December 31st, so you want to keep that in mind. And several of us will be at the conference, so we would love to see you there. All right, do we have any questions about any of that information? I'll stop sharing and pull up the chat so I can.
Yeah, there's nothing in the chat right now, Erin.
Okay.
But we'll take any questions that people may have.
Let me check the email really quickly. Okay. Right, so here's apparently the Cognia website has been down the last few days. It looks like it might be working now, but schools may be getting an extension on phase 3 of the CSIP. We can look into that with our people who work with that just to verify that for everyone. And I'm sure if there is an extension, they'll be communicating that out as well. Okay. I don't see any more questions. So if that is all, I will let everybody go. I want to thank you for joining us, and everybody have a good winter break. Enjoy your well-deserved time off, and we will see you in January.